Water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
In a revealing shakeup of the martial arts and film industry, Chuck Norris has finally spoken out about the untold story behind the tragic and mysterious deaths of the legends Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee. What really happened to these iconic figures? Get ready to ignite your mind as we uncover the secrets buried for decades. Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are two of the most legendary martial artists and action stars of all time. But how did they meet and become friends? And how did they end up fighting each other in one of the most iconic showdowns in cinema history? The story begins in the late 1960s when both Lee and Norris were rising stars in their respective fields. Lee had made a name for himself in Hong Kong with his first two films, The Big Boss and Fist of Fury, and was looking to expand his horizons. Meanwhile, Norris was a world champion in karate, having won numerous tournaments and titles both in the US and abroad. The two first met at the 1967 All-American Karate Championship, where Norris emerged victorious and Lee showcased his martial arts skills. Impressed with each other, they met again after the event and began discussing martial arts and combat. They quickly discovered they had much in common and decided to train together at Lee's backyard. Lee, always eager to learn from others, was able to glean valuable advice from Norris, who convinced him to practice high kicks. Lee had previously believed that a martial artist should never kick above the waist, but Norris showed him the importance of being able to kick anywhere, especially if an opponent left their head exposed. Lee realized Norris was right. And within 6 months of training, his high kicks were as good as Norris's. Meanwhile, Norris was also impressed by Lee's speed, power, and philosophy. He learned from Lee's creative style of Jeet Kune Do. Jeet Kune Do, or the way of the intercepting fist, is a martial arts philosophy and style created by Lee himself. It's not a fixed technical system but a way of expressing oneself flexibly and adaptively in combat and in life. Jeet Kune Do is based on simple, direct, and free principles, aiming to transcend the limitations of traditional martial arts. One of the most notable features of Jeet Kune Do is the concept of interception, meaning attacking the attack or intention of the opponent before it reaches its target. This requires high levels of awareness, speed, timing, and the ability to adapt to any situation. Jeet Kune Do practitioners train in various tools of interception, such as punches, kicks, traps, locks, and throws. Jeet Kune Do is not just a martial art but a way of life. It encourages practitioners to have open-minded, flexible, and creative thinking, seeking knowledge and self-improvement. As Lee said, research your own experience. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. Add what is essentially your own. Norris also admired Lee's dedication and passion, and the two became close friends. And then suddenly, he called me. He said, "I've done 2 movies in Hong Kong and they're really successful." He said, "Now I want to do a movie with a fight scene that has never been done before and I want you to be my opponent." Their friendship led to collaboration in 1972, when Lee invited Norris to star in his third film, Way of the Dragon, a film Lee also wrote and directed. Way of the Dragon is a 1972 Hong Kong martial arts action comedy film co-produced and directed by Lee, who also stars in the lead role. The film is the only complete film directed by Lee and the last film released during his lifetime. It features Nora Miao, Robert Wall, Wei Pingyu, and Chuck Norris. The film follows Tang Lung, a young martial artist from Hong Kong who travels to Rome to help his friend Chen Qinghua and her uncle Wang, who are being harassed by a gangster who wants to take over their restaurant. Tang employs his kung fu skills to fight against the underworld and protect the restaurant, while also exploring the city and its culture. The film reaches its climax in the legendary showdown between Tang and the hired assassin of the crime boss, Colt, played by Norris in Way of the Dragon. The Way of the Dragon was a huge box office success, grossing over $130 million worldwide, with a modest budget of $130,000, making it a thousandfold return on investment. It was the highest-grossing film of 1972 in Hong Kong and the highest-grossing film in Hong Kong history up to that point. It also broke records in the US, where it was released under the title, Return of the Dragon, in 1974, becoming the first Hong Kong film to top the US box office. The film has been hailed as one of the greatest martial arts films of all time and a showcase of Lee's talent as a filmmaker and star. It features some of the most iconic fight scenes in cinema history, such as the nunchaku duel, the alley fight, and the final showdown with Norris. The film also embodies Lee's martial arts philosophy, emphasizing adaptability, creativity, and self-expression. The final showdown between Lee and Norris takes place in an ancient Roman arena and is considered one of the greatest fight scenes ever filmed. Both display their skills and styles, with Lee using his speed and agility, while Norris utilizes his strength and endurance. The fight is notable for its realism, as both genuinely go all out, and for its respect, as both bow to each other before and after the battle. The fight ends with Lee defeating Norris, but not before giving him one final gesture of honor by covering his body with a jacket. Chuck Norris has his own theory about Bruce Lee's death, which he finally shared at Comic-Con in San Diego, where he performed martial arts. Of course, Norris knew Lee well and was aware of his health issues and habits. He said that Lee injured his back in 1968 while performing a weightlifting exercise called Good Mornings. He ruptured a disc in his spine, causing him significant pain and limited mobility. He had to undergo surgery and take medication to recover. Norris believes Lee was stubborn and impatient. He didn't heed the doctor's advice to rest and recover properly. Instead, he continued to train and work hard, pushing his body to the limit. Norris also noted that Lee had a very fast metabolism and was always trying to gain weight and muscle. He said Lee ate a lot of protein and took supplements like ginseng and royal jelly to boost energy and performance. He also drank a lot of water, sometimes up to 10 liters a day to flush toxins out of his body. Norris said Lee was obsessed with perfection and wanted to be the best at everything he did. While he was in Hong Kong preparing for his next film, he was working with a girl named Betty, who would co-star with him, and he had a severe headache. So Betty gave him some antibiotics for the headache, and along with the medicine he was taking for his back pain and the headache medicine he took, they reacted with each other and caused swelling in his brain. It created cerebral edema or ruptured blood cells in his brain. According to Norris, on the night he passed away, Lee was in Hong Kong preparing for his next film, Game of Death. He was working with an actress named Betty Ting Pei, his mistress. He had a severe headache and asked Betty for one of the painkillers prescribed by her, containing aspirin. Norris said that Lee was allergic to aspirin and he didn't know that the pill contained it. He said the combination of the medicine, supplements, and water caused a reaction in Lee's body, leading to brain swelling or edema. He said Lee went to lie down on Betty's bed and never woke up again. Brain swelling is a serious condition that causes fluid to accumulate in the brain, leading to increased pressure inside the skull. This can damage brain cells and reduce blood and oxygen flow to the brain. Cerebral edema can be life-threatening and requires immediate medical care. There are various causes of cerebral edema, such as traumatic brain injury, stroke, infection, tumors, diabetes, altitude, and drug overdose. Depending on the cause and severity of the swelling condition, symptoms of cerebral edema may vary. Some common symptoms include headaches, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, weakness, confusion, vision problems, seizures, and loss of consciousness. Cerebral edema can be diagnosed through physical examination and various tests, such as CT scans, MRI, and blood tests. Treatment options depend on the underlying cause and the level of intracranial pressure. Some common treatment methods include medication, surgery, and oxygen therapy. The goal of treatment is to restore blood and oxygen flow to the brain and reduce swelling. Cerebral edema can lead to serious complications such as permanent brain damage. coma, and death. Unfortunately, some famous individuals have died from cerebral edema, such as Alan Ladd, a Hollywood actor who starred in films like Shane and The Great Gatsby. He passed away in 1964 at the age of 50 due to alcohol and drug overdose-induced cerebral edema and respiratory failure. Nicolette Larson, a singer-songwriter who rose to fame with the song Lotta Love, died in 1997 at the age of 45 due to complications of cerebral edema caused by liver failure. After Bruce Lee's tragic death, Chuck Norris expressed his respect for Lee in various interviews and publications. He described Lee as a phenomenon and a genius who revolutionized martial arts and cinema. He also mentioned that Lee was a humble and generous person who taught him a lot and inspired him to improve himself. Norris said he remembered Lee and wished he could see him grow old and achieve more accomplishments. Norris also maintained a close relationship with the Lee family, especially with Bruce's son, Brandon Lee. Brandon was only 8 years old when his father passed away, but he inherited his father's passion and talent for martial arts and acting. He followed in his father's footsteps and became an actor, starring in films like Showdown in Little Tokyo, Rapid Fire, and The Crow. Norris acted as a mentor and friend to Brandon, helping him in his training and career development. He also supported him in his personal life when Brandon faced challenges such as racial discrimination, media pressure, and family expectations. Norris said Brandon was like a son to him, and he was very proud of him. Sadly, Brandon also passed away at a young age in 1993, at the age of 28, due to a tragic accident on the set of The Crow. He was inadvertently shot by a prop gun that was supposed to fire blanks but contained live ammunition in the chamber. He was rushed to the hospital, but he did not survive the wound. His death was a heavy blow to his family, friends, and fans, who mourned the loss of another Lee. Norris was deeply saddened and devastated, attending Brandon's funeral to pay his respects. He said that Brandon was a wonderful person and an excellent actor with a bright future ahead of him. He also expressed feeling like he had lost 2 sons and hoped they would be together in heaven. However, Norris's explanation faced skepticism and challenges from many, but most of what Norris said agrees with the findings of Matthew Polly, who provided a more plausible theory in his book Bruce Lee: A Life. Polly argued that Lee died of heatstroke, a condition that occurs when the body overheats and cannot regulate temperature. Heatstroke can cause multiple organ failure, brain damage, and death. Polly presented his theory based on several events and clues he discovered during extensive research into Lee's life and death. First, Polly noted that Lee had surgery to remove sweat glands in his armpits because he thought they looked bad on screen. This reduced his body's ability to cool itself by sweating, especially in the hot and humid climate of Hong Kong. Sweat glands are essential for temperature regulation, and their removal could increase the risk of heat-related illnesses. Second, Polly pointed out that Lee had a history of heatstroke, a condition he suffered from 10 weeks before his death while dubbing his movie Enter the Dragon. He collapsed and convulsed in a small, poorly ventilated room and was taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with cerebral edema. Doctors treated him with mannitol, a medication that reduces brain swelling, and he recovered. However, Polly argued that the actual cause of his collapse was heatstroke, which could also cause cerebral edema, and the doctors missed the diagnosis. He cited the professional opinion of Dr. Lisa Leon, who said that someone who has suffered a heatstroke is at higher risk of having another stroke, and that patients with multi-organ dysfunction for hours, days, or weeks have a higher risk of long-term disability and death. Third, Polly revealed that Lee died on the hottest day of July 1973, when the temperature rose to 33.9 degrees Celsius, or 93 degrees Fahrenheit. He was in his lover's apartment, Betty Ting's, where he complained of a headache and took an Equagesic pill, a medication containing aspirin and a tranquilizer. He then lay down on her thickly padded bed. Polly argued that the combination of medication, the thick blanket, and the heat created a perfect storm that caused Lee to suffer a heatstroke, leading to his death. He also suggested that this medication might have masked the symptoms of heatstroke, such as thirst, fatigue, and confusion, while preventing Li from seeking help. Polly's theory is supported by the autopsy report, which showed no signs of allergic reaction in Li, such as hives, rash, or difficulty breathing. His blood tests also showed normal levels of aspirin and tranquilizers, ruling out overdose. However, his brain was swollen by 13%, indicating cerebral edema. Polly also quoted the testimony of Dr. Donald Langford, who examined Li's body and said that heatstroke is a definite possibility. One of the most popular and intriguing theories is that Li was killed by the Triads, an organized crime syndicate from China operating in Hong Kong and other Asian regions. According to this theory, Li had incurred the wrath of the Triads while living and working in Hong Kong, and they decided to eliminate him for various reasons. One reason could be that the Triads were not satisfied with how Li portrayed Chinese martial arts in his films. Bruce Lee was known for breaking traditional rules and conventions of martial arts while introducing new and unique techniques and methods. He also challenged the authority and legitimacy of some long-standing martial arts masters and schools in Hong Kong, who were believed to be associated with the Triads. Lee's films were seen as a threat to the control and influence of the Triads over the martial arts community, as well as a lack of respect for their culture and traditions. Another reason could be that the Triads wanted to extort Lee, a highly successful and wealthy actor-cum-producer. Lee was rumored to have refused to pay protection money to the Triads, who were known for demanding a cut of profits from the Hong Kong film industry. Lee was also planning to expand his career into Hollywood and other international markets, which would diminish the leverage and access of the Triads to him. The Triads may have seen Lee as a formidable and greedy opponent who needed to be taught a lesson or eliminated. A third reason could be that the Triads had personal vendettas or generational feuds with Lee, who was accused of offending or surpassing some members or associates of theirs. Lee was famously outspoken and confident, not backing down from challenges or fights. He may have angered or offended some leaders or members of the Triads, who were seeking revenge or punishment. Lee may have also had romantic relationships with some women affiliated with the Triads, such as actress Betty Ting Pei, who was with him on the day he died. This could have sparked jealousy or resentment from some members of the Triads who wanted to harm Lee or his reputation. According to the Triads' theory, they had several ways to kill Lee, such as poisoning, shooting, stabbing, or strangling him. However, the most common and plausible scenario is that they used a technique called dim mak, or the death touch, involving striking certain pressure points on the body that can cause internal injury or death. The Triads may have hired or coerced a martial arts expert, such as Lee's rival or former student, to perform a mysterious dim mak strike on him, directly or indirectly. The dim mak strike may have caused swelling in Lee's brain or stopped his heart or lungs, leading to his death. The Triads theory is supported by some indirect evidence and testimonies, such as the following. Lee received numerous death threats and warnings from the Triads, who also attempted to sabotage or disrupt his film sets and projects. Lee had suffered from cerebral edema 2 months before his death, which could have been the Triads' failed attempt to kill him with dim mak. Lee complained of headaches and dizziness on the day he died, which could be signs of the lingering effects of dim mak. Lee visited a restaurant owned by the Triads on the day he died, where he may have been poisoned or attacked by the Triads. Lee died in Betty Ting Pei's apartment, rumored to be a lover or spy of the Triads, who may have drugged or sedated him for the Triads. Lee's body showed signs of bruising and needle marks, which could be evidence of the Triads' dim mak strike or attempts to cover up their crime. After Lee's death came a series of suspicious and tragic events, such as the death of his son, Brandon Lee, who was shot on the set of The Crow in 1993, and the disappearance or murder of some of his friends and associates, who may have known too much or tried to expose the Triads. Some believe that Bruce Lee was a victim of the Lee family curse, a mysterious and tragic legacy that has haunted his ancestors through generations. According to this theory, the Li family is descended from a famous general named Li Yuan, who lived during the Tang dynasty. Li Yuan was a loyal and brave warrior who fought against rebellious forces and protected the emperor. However, he also made many enemies who plotted to assassinate him. One of them was a powerful sorcerer who cursed Li Yuan and his descendants, swearing that they would never live past the age of 33. Another version of the story suggests that the Li family is related to another general named Li Sung, who lived during the Song dynasty around 960–1279 AD. Li Sung was a traitor who betrayed his emperor and joined the Mongols, who invaded China. As a punishment, the emperor's court wizard cursed Li Sung and his offspring, condemning them to die by fire or metal. Whether these stories are true or not, they have influenced the beliefs and the behaviors of the Li family for centuries. Bruce Lee's parents, Li Huichuan and Grace Ho, were deeply spiritual and superstitious, especially after the death of Bruce's older brother, who passed away before Bruce was born. The cause of his death remains unknown, but some speculate it to be a result of a curse. To protect Bruce from malevolent spirits, his parents gave him a female nickname, Little Phoenix. They also dressed him in girls' clothes and pierced his ears, hoping to deceive the spirits into believing he was a girl. Additionally, they avoided calling him by his real name, Jun Fan, meaning, return again. In Chinese, fearing it would beckon spirits to take him away. Bruce Lee's parents also believed in fate or destiny, consulting fortune tellers and astrologers who warned them that Bruce had a strong and auspicious destiny, but also a short and perilous one. They cautioned that Bruce Lee would face many challenges and adversaries in his life and advised him to be careful about his health and safety. Despite their efforts to shield him from curses and destiny, Bruce's parents couldn't prevent him from pursuing his dreams. Bruce Lee was a rebellious and adventurous child who had a passion for martial arts, films, and challenges. At the age of 18, he moved to the United States, where he studied, taught, and developed his own martial arts style called Jeet Kune Do. He also pursued a career in Hollywood, where he faced discrimination and prejudice but broke down barriers and stereotypes. He became a star, a hero, and a legend, but he also attracted enemies, rivals, and critics. Some believe that Bruce Lee's death was not an accident but a result of the Lee family curse. They point out that he died at the same age as his grandfather, who also died from a brain edema. They also note that he died in the year and hour of the dragon, which is his zodiac sign, and that he had a premonition about his own death in a dream, which he recounted to his wife, Linda Lee. They also suggest that he was haunted by a demon he saw in the mirror and fought in his films, such as Enter the Dragon and Game of Death. The theory of the Lee family curse gained more attention after the death of Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, who also died tragically while filming The Crow. Some believe that Brandon Lee's death was also a result of the Lee family curse. They point out that he died while portraying a character killed by a gunshot, similar to his father, who died while filming a scene where he was supposed to be shot with a prop gun. They also note that he died shortly before the release of the film Dragon, the story of Bruce Lee, a biographical film about his father, which includes a scene where Bruce Lee fights a demon trying to kill him and his son.